Hello guys, and welcome to the fourth episode in the Toolkit Luminosity panel video series. In this episode, I'm going to go through how to create a working mask, why you would want a pixel mask, which is the output of the working mask, and why a working mask is a good way to create a pixel mask. So this is definitely not just a zone system, because if you want to just use zones, I would recommend blendif if you're inside of Photoshop. But even better, do it in the raw converter, because then you have access to a lot more information and it doesn't use color models. So what are masks used for? Well, most cases, like creating selections for specific areas, and I'm not talking about using selections inside of Photoshop, but to actually have a selection or a channel with a specific object. So it could be either for compositing, cutouts, or if you want to do targeted adjustments to specific areas of an image. And depending on what type of image, this could be clothes, furniture, like product photography. It could be the label, whatever you have. Most simple thing is to cut out the background, and Photoshop has gotten pretty good at this lately. So there is a few options inside of Photoshop. But I wanted a quicker way to just access more towards the traditional way of using and creating masks without having to degrade your image. So I will mention degrading quite a bit. And what I mean by degrading is if you're limiting the amount of information that you have available from the start. So that's why I always recommend to use 16-bit if you have a computer that can handle 16-bit. Even when you're going to output for 8-bit. Because that conversion from 16-bit to 8-bit will create smoother gradients than if you had started in 8-bit. Even if the start image is 8-bit and you're doing a composite, for example, you still want to convert to 16-bit when you do the work, because all your masks and everything then are going to have more information and less likelihood of banding, which everyone knows of, but it's also a matter of having nice and smooth gradients in color, luminosity, hue, everything. So banding is not just a luminosity or brightness issue. This can happen with color as well. Okay, so let's get started. Let's see if I do two parts of this one, because it's a little bit advanced, and then I might do a couple of example videos as well, because it's easy to see with examples. So, and just to go back to what I said, even though it's a very advanced tool, it's very simple to use. And these are the keywords for me in everything that I do. I never want to create one button solutions. I need the user to have the full control. And I just want to make it easy. And I think I've managed to do that, just as the blendif, if you've seen the previous video about blendif. Okay, so what are working masks? They are a group of very specific layers that create black and white result. And if you click on luminosity without touching anything else, this is now just a simple luminosity mask, but it's not a pixel layer. As you can see, it's adjustment layers. And this is important because now I can tweak here So if I drag on a slider here, it's the same as the blend if, basically. And the way it does the selection is very good to transitions and very smooth because it keeps a lot of information from your image. So just as an example, before I show more about what it can do, in the past I would often copy a channel. So quick teaching lesson. I'm sure a lot of you know this but don't think too much about it, because I know I didn't think too much about it. But in an RGB image we have red, green and blue, of course, and I've colored them here because it's a setting in Photoshop. I also, since I've been starting to use this tool, I've had it for half a year now or so, I never use these channels and I'll show why. But so then I just color them so I know where they are. But a good way that some people used before when they did like certain cutouts, especially with skin, was to copy the blue channel. But this means you now have 1/3 of less information in the image than if you had the RGB. Okay, so let's continue with a few basics, and then I'll do more advanced in the next episode of the working mask. So the top input here is to create a very smooth selection of what you want. So you can use the quick access zones here, but they are only here to do a really fast first selection. So like the lights one on the right click, everything is left click and right click, by the way. You can just click on anything here to get some start parameters on things. If you have a Toolkit panel maker, you can also go in and tweak all of the settings here. It's in advanced options, but you can really make your own buttons. All of this is customizable. Like even what values that we input for some of the more advanced stuff is all customizable. So that might not be important for a few of you, and if you've bought it separately, once we have the installer for this, then you will not be able to change it. Okay, so the top slider here controls the fade of what you're selecting, and the bottom one is more like a limiter. So if I pull on this one, it's going to start to darken, or the midtones, I can change where the midtones are, or push in the brights without touching this. The top slider or top input is more for just making it smooth, and as you can see, it's because it's using a curve. And this curve is quadratic at the moment. I also offer Gaussian, and I'll show when each is good. For example, when there's very fine hairs like this, the Gaussian does a really good job, because the fall off is so the default fall off is like this, linear. And that's what you get if you use blend if, for example, or levels. But then if you use a Gaussian, it does more of an S-curve. And this is actually the Gaussian function that's calculating these points. So if you know Gaussian blur, for example, very common thing. And then quadratic is more of a fall off. Doesn't really matter, but because you can see what they do. So the technical terms doesn't matter, but you see the difference. And then you can tweak as you wish. See, yeah. And then let's not do much more in this first episode because I only wanted to quickly show the sliders and not going too advanced. If you then are happy with this, can convert it now. So it's still a working mask. And the working mask means that it's still not a pixel mask. So it's still live updates on everything, and you don't need to like worry about this taking up size. But when you want to tweak it, there's a few methods to tweak a working mask while you're working with it, but we'll go through that in next episode. But I built very clever features here. First, real quickly, an eye helper that's useful is called Clip. It's useful when you want to create absolutes. So like blue is completely black, and then purple is almost black. So you want to watch out for purple and like the fade you're getting. And the opposite goes for the other way. So let's just remove it so you can see. So the opposite is the white is red. Every area in your mask that is completely white is going to show as red on top of this gray. So it's quite easy to see. And then the yellows are the fades. So if we can make this fade, there's not much to fade. Well, you can see it on the background here a little bit. The yellow means almost red. Okay, let's remove the clipping one. So let's just use something that's like this, maybe, because that's what we had. If I'm done happy with this, I want to convert it into a layer mask. Then it's just a matter of having any layer in your document when there's a working mask present. And then you press that you want to convert this working mask to a layer mask. So it's very good for, and it's quite clever, these buttons, because they allow you to do, depending on what you are currently have selected, they will do certain things. So if I press on new channel, I had the mask selected and I clicked on new channel, it automatically just created a channel for me with this name. So these two buttons convert to on the working mask has a lot of logic to them, and they save you from having to do control selections, because using control selections is going to give you less of a good result because of the limitations in selections. It also used to be 8-bit, but I'm not so sure if that's the case anymore. But either way, I recommend to use these buttons. They are very good. And then again, it's the same way on the opposite to get back. Hide this. If I have a channel that I'm working with any of the channel tools or whatever, or any of the Photoshop tools, if I want to refine this with the Photoshop tools, I can do that. But it's the same here. You can easily, if you have it selected, you can say convert to a layer mask and it does it. This is something I find very, very handy. Okay, I think that's enough for this episode. Let's continue with custom color luminosity and saturation and different methods of finding contrast in the next episode. Talk to you soon.